Hello, welcome back to part two. I had to take a break. I didn't want to put everything all in one, but I just wanted to get this out the way. So part two, I'm gonna talk about um the bewitchment. Okay. So part one, I spoke about the open doors in my life at a young age. If you haven't watched part one, go ahead and do so, or click in the description link below. I will add that to that. So part two, I'm gonna talk about the bewitchment. So, growing up, again, so my country ended up having a war, and then we had to leave. And then so when we left, we went to a neighboring, a country in West Africa. I don't want to say all the names because I feel like people will know who they are, or whatever. But we went to West Africa, went to live in West Africa. And growing up, I was always a very smart girl. I was good in my studies. I was, really, really good at my studies. If you know the African kind of ranking in classrooms, you have, first of the class, second of the class, up until the last number of the classmates. So however many numbers of children are in the class, everybody's ranked that way when they get their report cards after they do the test and stuff like that. So for me, I was always in the top five. If I wasn't, I was always between, the second, third, in between, I never really ventured off outside of the top fifth. I was always one of the top five of my classes. So by this time now, we've left my original native country, which is it's somewhere in Central Africa. I'm not gonna mention all the names but yeah. So so now we are in West Africa, and we're doing good so far. So again, so this particular time, and this is when now I started seeing the wickedness of this woman, right? I started seeing the it's not even wickedness, the spirit of envy and jealousy within this woman that my father married. So I brought my report card, and I was second of the class, like I was ranked second best of the class. And my father was happy, was just joyous, and it wasn't the same for her daughter. Her daughter didn't never made it through those rankings, right? And then so my father is just ecstatic because we're in a new country, and then I just adapted just like that, and I'm just flying through. I'm doing everything, and I'm doing things correctly and great. And so then I look behind because she was standing behind, or she was sitting behind my father. My father was standing, and as he was giving me compliments, hug, and all these things, then I looked to peep at her in the back, and all I see is a look of disgust towards me, a look of disgust, and a look of like that. So again, by this time I'm maybe like what, 8 7 8 years old, maybe, or 8 or 9, I don't know, in between there. And I'm not understanding why I'm getting that type of look. I just didn't. I was like, well, shouldn't she be happy that I did great, in my studies? Why is she giving me a look of disgust? But anyways, not knowing that that's when things shifted in my studies. And when I say things shifted in my studies, now knowing what I know now in terms of spirituality, that's when my destiny basically was swapped, or my destiny was like robbed, because the next semester, uh, when it was time to bring our report cards, I saw a decline in my studies. I went from being the second of the class to the fifth of the class, and I've never made it that far down. And my dad was still proud of me, right? And for her, same thing. This time I saw a smile on her face. And that's almost like to say, whatever I did spiritually worked. Because if you don't know about spirituality, people can people can rob your star. People can swap your destiny if they are envious and jealous of you, and this and that. People can do that. People that know about spirituality and the occult, they can do that, right? And so, again, knowing what I know now, everything makes sense, because back then I didn't know. I was young, I was a child. I didn't know about God the way I know about God now. I didn't know about my authority. I didn't know about, praying in a certain way. My father also didn't, because he was just kind of like, blinded in love, and didn't know these things even exist or happens. I don't believe he knew. But this time around, when she heard I was fifth, she actually had a smile on her face. But it wasn't a smile to say, "Oh, congratulations, you still did well." It was kind of the smile that says mission accomplished type of smile. Like, you know, like that type of thing. Like, whatever I did worked. Okay. And then from there on, there was just a decline in my studies. And I became 10th of the class. It started going even in the 20th child. I was like, I couldn't come up with anything good. Like, I'll be studying and studying and just get to the place of the test and completely just forget everything. Or sometimes you are even writing, you looking at your paper, you are writing the correct answers. But when your paper comes back, everything you wrote was wrong. The fault, because they used to have this thing where it's like a dictation. So the teacher would read something, and then you guys supposed to write it, right? Even in those moments, like, you think you got all the words correct because you know these words, and then the paper comes back and everything is just underlined with red, 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 red. You wrote it wrong, you missed it. So from there on, really, I think I started seeing my self-esteem even go down in terms of like studies and things like that. I really, I didn't like even bringing my report card anymore to my dad, because I felt like it was just so disappointing. I didn't understand what was going on, but that's just what it is. So that's what happened. And then, at school, I started being bullied, randomly, just random people. And so now, because of being bullied at school and just being harassed by different people, boys and girls, I had to now develop a persona to defend myself. A persona that was cold, a persona that was straight to the point, a persona that basically was like, you want to mess with me, we're going to go toe to toe. You think you can pick on me? Well, let me tell you something. So I started using my mouth to defend myself. I wasn't using, my face or anything, but somebody came to me the wrong way, I was able now to use my mouth to inflict pain and inflict, destruction with my mouth. And I think that's the way sometimes the enemy takes a lot of people out of their destiny, is because, just like, Jesus said to love one another. If somebody, slaps you with one cheek, give them the other. That we're supposed to be humble, we're supposed to be patient, because that's what love is. Patient, love is kind. We're supposed to love overcomes the multitude of sins. But in a world that you don't know exactly what love is, or how to love others, or how to even love yourself, let's begin there. How can you show really love to others? And so I just became tired of people, you know trying to come at me the wrong way. And so I started to had to bring in the hammer on some people, so that I demanded respect. And in that moment, when I started doing that, and I started seeing a shift on people, now started to respect me and now mess around with me the way they used to. And then pride settled in, like, yeah, I did it, I can do this. But long story short, at home, again, we still had issues here and there with her daughter at times. I think there was one time we got into it where we were in bunk beds, right? And then we always shared beds at the time, so we always shared the same bed. And I don't know what we got into, and she literally got on top of me and started choking me on the bed. She started choking me, and I don't know who came in to separate us. I don't know if it was one of the ladies that lived with us or my father. And I remember when they got her off of me, I screamed and I said, "You're a witch." And I said that without thinking, twice, without hesitation. I said it, I blurted out of my mouth, not really knowing what I was saying, not knowing that I actually, whatever I said was really identifying the spirit of witchcraft. Now, the spirit of witchcraft and being a witch, it's two different things. We're going to go into it another time. But I literally identified that spirit in her was a spirit of witchcraft, because there's no way, and you can be that angry at somebody to get to that level of like wanting to choke me and end my life right there and there. And as I said, we have a pretty big year like gap, like maybe like a almost a 10-year gap with each other. So I was still younger than her, and she was obviously much stronger at the time, because as I said, I was only about maybe 7 or 8 or 8 or 9, between those range. Okay. And we have about maybe almost a 10-year gap in terms of age. So yeah, so when they got me off her and I screamed, I said it, I said it, you're a witch. So, and I didn't apologize for it. I don't think I apologized for it then. But I have since, repented for anything that I said to anybody, to God, and all of these things. But whatever. We're not gonna go into all those other things. But so yeah, so this just things, so at school, finally, nobody's bullying me, I'm getting friends, I'm being friendly. But then now I'm, getting into, I think maybe I was like maybe around 10, I started growing. I started growing like physically, like very early, like signs of puberty, like early puberty. So around 10, I had, pretty, um, I would say like my body was already like changing and things like that. And then so, obviously boys started looking, already like, and so attention, not just boys, but um, even, I wouldn't even say, it's too early to see the teachers things, but that will be in another video. But yeah, so at school, one of my closest friend was actually Muslim. She was a Muslim girl, and she was just amazing. She was the best friend, the only friend I had. So we always hung out together, and I remember during that time, I always hung out at their house and this and that. And I think also what ended up happening. I think what ended up happening. I think I may have skipped it a little bit. So actually, I stopped. Um, oh yeah. So an event happened at before I got to that school. I met the Muslim girl best friend. Right. There was another school that I was going to, and in that school, I had an issue with one of the teachers, and I had an issue with one of the teachers, and she had um used a wooden ruler on me because of, I don't know what happened, or it was something I got wrong, because it's common in Africa where you get whooped in class. Okay, you don't act right, you're gonna get whooped. So it was very common. So something, I don't know if I did something or I just got something answers wrong, which you can get whooped for not doing well in your test, or whatever, or in your homework. So I got whooped, and that was like the very first time. Again, as I said, my grades started declining and everything. So I went home, and I told my father, and I think she was there when that situation happened. And but to I know there was nothing really that bothered her about it, really, but she did take it upon herself to go meet with that teacher and ask her why she put hands on me, right? But I always had a sense that when she did that, it was not so much of about me, that it was more so much about her, to show her power, not physical power, but her spiritual power. Because that teacher, somehow, she knew something. There was a different energy about this woman. So when finally she came to the school and told that teacher, "You can't." She's like, "Do you know how it is to birth children?" Da 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 da. Like, she went deep into, like, putting that teacher, like, in her place. Like, she went deep into, like, places like, "Do you have kids?" And then that teacher did not have kids, right? And so she went in on that teacher. So long story short, she definitely took care of that teacher. Okay. um but like I said, still part of me um believed that it was more so to show how powerful she was, because then the school knew about her now, like, yeah, right, you don't go messing over here. But again, my grades, weren't doing well. I was still not climbing back up to the rank that I used to be. So I still was not doing well in school. And so we eventually moved. And I think when we moved, I went to a different school where I met this Muslim girl. And every time we hung out together, with other Muslim children, they always tried to convert me into turning, to also, become a Muslim. And I told them always boldly, even as young as I was, and I didn't really know much about the Word of God. I always told them, I said, no, I was born in a Christian home. We believe in God. We believe in Jesus. That's it. I'm not converting into anything or anyone that I'm not, that I don't believe in. And so I still stood strong in my faith, even though I didn't know what God's purpose was for me at the time, and why things were happening to me the way it was. But yeah, so God still preserved me in my mind. And so so as that's happening, um again, at this new school now, I think at this time maybe I'm about, I would say, 12. Yeah, so maybe let's say, no, like maybe like about 11, 12 years old. So now it's no more like, again, I had an early puberty, so I'm looking like a grown woman at this time, okay? Um and then so even in the classrooms, the teachers have their eyes down my shirt when they're coming close because of how already developed I was at that time. And so, yeah, so, again, it just kind of puts you vulnerable, as a young child, kind of like, why are this older men, having their eyes on me like they shouldn't? But I remember even one time, one of the teachers, I think it was supposed to be, it was like during exam time, and I went, um and this teacher, I think I was doing my exam, and he came by, and I had a question about one of the problems. It was math. I think the math teacher, and he basically slipped me his number, because after the exams it's like the summertime, and then you guys go off and do. This teacher slipped me his number as he came to my desk. And mind you, I'm like maybe 12 years old at this time. And this grown, fully grown man is slipping me his number to call him after the exams, and that everything will be taken care of. Because I was like trying to tell him that I didn't understand the question, that if he could explain the question a little bit more so I can figure out how to get this problem solved or whatever. And he tried to tell me, basically, if you call me, I'm gonna take care of this right here. So just understand now how the enemy now is placing me in in places where he's already telling me I need to sell myself to excel. Now, because there was been a spiritual robbing of my education and intellect at this moment, at this point, that he's asking me now to resort to selling part of me in a sexual manner to advance in life. And then I know that we hear this story so much, so many times, even in the music industry, in the movie industry. People have had to go and sell themselves off their bodies in order to make it to the highest ranking artist, in order to make a record. Even they may not even make it to the highest ranking after they sell themselves, in order to make it to that movie, in order to get through in life. But in Africa, there's many stories of young girls basically sleeping with, their teachers so that they can advance to the next class. And I didn't understand it then, but now that I'm older, it makes sense. But I'm thank God that I still had the wisdom at that moment not to react and not to cause a scene, because everything could have been done for me, right? Done for me. And so I took the number, right? And as I was leaving class that day, I shredded that thing and tossed it in the trash near somewhere in the school. And I never, obviously the guy can come back and say, "Hey, you never called me. You never," because then it's exposing him. He can come out to me and ever say that, in the school, even at all, because he would get in big trouble as well. So yeah, so again, you can see how that spirit of perversion now seems to be following me in one area and the other. Any way that that spirit of perversion can find slip in, it's finding its way now through me to me. Um, and so yeah, so that's kind of like, how at this point, after being having my um destiny being robbed and swapped, you know um or just tempered with my studies, I was not able to, this the type of things now that started coming to me. It's kind of like the enemy wants you to work for something God has already given to you. Like that's how like the devil's such a liar. The devil's such a liar, because that intellect and that intelligence God has already given to me. He has already given to me. So I don't need to go and lay with anybody and whomever to be able to make it in life. You don't need to go lay down with anybody to make it to life, to feel like you need to pass a class, you need to make it to the, this record or that record or this movie or that movie. But the enemy will make you think that you do not have the capacity to become great. So let me give you these things. Just like when he came to Jesus after fasting for 40 days, saying, well, you look hungry. Why don't you turn these rocks into bread? I have all these kingdoms. If you bow down to me, I'm going to give it to you, not knowing that Jesus already owns all of that stuff. God already given us all of that intellect, all that intelligence. We just need to know. We need to ask. Ask and it shall be given. We need to ask for wisdom. We need to pray to God to unlock what the enemy is trying to lock, or even if there's a spiritual tempering there. That's where, having praying parents, parents really need to pray over, the children, because you don't know what type of spirit is hindering your child from advancing from the reading level to or the writing level, or whatever spirit this it's everything is spiritual. Okay, so if you're seeing your child is lacking in a certain area, certain subject somewhere, understand that God had given that child already the ability to perform well in all subjects. Now, what needs to be done is for you as a parent to continue encouraging them to make the steps. And while as you encourage them spiritually on the back end, you need to go before the Lord and ask the Lord to reveal to you what type of spirit it is that is causing your child to be delayed. And then most of the time, that's really what it is. It's a spirit of delay, a spirit of delay in reading, because you even hear it. They say delay in speech, delay in this, and delay in that. You hear it, even therapists talk about it, that it's spiritual. It's a spirit. Delay is a spirit. Stagnation is a spirit. So you have to be able to go before the Lord and command. As the parent, you have the authority over your child to command those spirits to be removed, to be cast out of your children. You have the authority, not the teacher, not the assistant teacher, not the principal, not your father, not your mother. You as the parent have the authority, especially you mothers, because your womb is a gate as well, where you had given birth. We give birth. So you have that authority. So you have to remember to always continue praying over your children. Don't pick on them. Don't laugh at them, because you're only causing trauma that's going to further push them away from you and push them into the hands of the devil. So you have to get down on your knees and you have to start praying over your children, that whatever is blocking your children from doing better in school, that it be nullified and void right now in the name of Jesus. You have to lay hands on them. You have to fast for them. You have to pray. Sometimes you got to wake up in the midnight hour. Sometimes you got to do a 1 hour, 2 hour prayer just to make sure that your children are covered, just to make sure that your children are sanctified, just to make sure that there is protection around your children, because even in schools there are witches and warlock that hides in there, and that's going to be a story for another time, because I have some of my own stories of how one of my kids had a teacher that basically kept putting spells on her, and then she'll come back home and she will be so heavily charged. When I say charged, because I can feel it. And this is a sensitivity that the Lord has given to me, that I can touch something, I can touch an item, and I can tell that this thing has been bewitched, because there's a charge. When I say there's energy, people project energy, it's true. But only people that really God gives you that sensitivity, you're able to tell, because I can touch something and I can tell that this has been spiritually charged by witchcraft. I can tell that if somebody had put a spell on something like this, I can feel it. As soon as I touched it, it would basically zap me, and then I will let it go, because there's something over it. And until I finish praying over it and then I touch it and I can feel that it's gone. So you have to beware of the things, that the gifts that are being given to your children, the things that your children bring home from school, if whether it's from friends, from whatever family members, those, everybody. Okay, pray for your children. All right, we'll catch you in part 3.